Today, I recorded episode number 3 with Teresa Villaruz. Teresa is an amazing lady, amazing entrepreneur. She's also part of some of the community that I belong to, and so that's where we met. And you're going to enjoy her story. I just want to tell everybody, and that may be watching this in the future, is we just met. We met you. I do recognize you from our Monterey trip, and you happen to live in Monterey, California.
Correct.
And so I met you a couple months ago, but I didn't really meet you until about a month ago on a Zoom. So we are not friends. Well, we're acquaintances, but by the end of this, we're going to be friends. So
Absolutely.
I,
Might
I
even
love
be besties.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So I'm going to ask you lots of things today, but I really just want to get to know you and know what you're doing. My one of my goals of this podcast is to talk to people who, well, to talk to people who are trying to do something outside of the box. And I say that not that we all have to do that, but I just know that for me, I'm 57. Um, I didn't buy my first piece of real estate, which is my passion, until I was 52. And the reason for that is because I was comfortable and safe, and I just did my thing, and I didn't even think to go outside the box and try something that was a passion of mine. And so I really am trying to find that in people. So if I ask you
Mhm.
questions that seem a little bit odd, that's what I'm trying to do. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Great, great, great. So I understand you're married and you have one child, correct?
That is correct.
Tell me who you're married to and what kind of child you got.
Yeah. So I'm married to Dustin, and we are high school sweethearts, actually.
Mm.
Yeah, statistics show that, high school sweethearts actually, when they get married, has a lower risk rate of divorce. So, hey, who knew?
I, I absolutely agree. I'm married for 34 years to my high school and junior high school sweetheart.
Oh, there you
So
go.
so yeah, I agree. I think if you find that person, and you go, right? So I
Yeah.
love that. And you guys
Yeah.
have a child?
Yes, we do. We have one daughter. Her name is Hayden. Yeah, and
How old
I
is she?
tell people she's 11 turning 17.
Well, you're coming. I have a little history with daughters and granddaughters actually now, and yeah, your time's coming, Mama.
I know.
No, that's very good. Good, good, good.
Yeah.
So, and you live in Monterey, California. So, tell me a little bit about the business you're in. What do you do?
Oh my gosh. My husband and I are serial entrepreneurs, um,
That's awesome.
to begin with. But we have four businesses that we're trying to juggle right now. First business is we're trying to open up a boba cafe here in Monterey. It's 2 years in the making, I would say, but it's almost there. We're about to do our soft opening sometime this month, and then grand opening next month. So yay!
Nice. What's it called?
It's called Lilikoi Boba of Monterey
Okay,
Bay. So
Monterey Bay. What
yes.
do you mind sharing what street it's on so we can maybe push some people your way?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually in Seaside, which is the city within the Monterey Bay County, and the street it's on is on Fremont Boulevard, which is the main street in that city. So it'll be right
It
there
is.
where traffic is flowing, great place, and the concept of it really is that lilikoi is a Hawaiian name for passion fruit, right? And we're trying to bring the islands to the bay. That's kind of like the
I love
concept there.
that.
So
I
yeah,
love that. Well,
yeah.
that's you guys are gonna crush it because I what I do know of you is you crush it. So I love that.
Well,
Awesome.
thank you. Yeah. Well, that's one of the businesses, right? I mentioned four. Second business is we're in real estate, although it's not, I would say, the most active business that we have. We are in real estate. We started in 2010. Well, 2011 is when we closed it, January. And it was at the very bottom of that crash, right? The real estate crash then.
Good for
At that
you.
time, we didn't know that it was like that was the turning point of that correction. But we got lucky and we decided, we were afraid of
Awesome.
jumping in, but we were like, it's either now or never. So we jumped in, and our strategy at that point was really live and flip. Because at that time we were right fresh out of college, got our first, W-2 jobs, and we thinking, the traditional route, right? We can't afford two mortgages. So that's what we decided to do. Let's live and flip.
I
And we
love
did
that.
that. Yeah. And we did that until, when the pandemic happened, and decided that, pandemic happened, month one, things weren't back to normal. Month two, things weren't back to normal. And at that time, construction workers were still not deemed as essential workers. So we couldn't get people to, renovate. And we're like, so, okay, we have to pivot, right? What are we doing now? So we decided that we're going to buy and hold, and went the short-term rental, mid-term rental, and long-term rental route. We pretty much
You've
tried.
done all those exit strategies? Oh
Yes,
my God.
and which was great because after, doing all three, we realized that our sweet spot was the midterm rental route.
Absolutely.
And more stories to that later, but that's the real estate side.
So
Yeah.
to stop on that. So a couple things I heard that I want to mark on is I'm older than you, and so when I was freshly married and young, I bought a house. Well, I bought a house a month before we got married, and then a couple years later, I was about to buy a business, and so I knew I had to, the house was too small. I had to go buy it, so I bought another house. And the other house, I thought to myself, I'm going to leave this house in place, and I rented it. Mistake. I rented it to someone who doesn't pay the rent. I'm not going to mention his name is the same as last name as mine, but the fact of the matter is, at that moment in time when you said I can't afford two mortgages, I said the same thing, and I sold that house
Mm.
at the bottom of the market, and I lost. And I always look back, and this is one of those things I talk about. Why I want this podcast to be about helping people to go, wait, let me take that next step, because if I would have taken that next step, that house would have been paying me $3,500, $4,000 a month, and it would have been paid off.
Yeah,
But I didn't make
absolutely.
that decision because I didn't talk to people who knew more than I. I just knew that I couldn't afford two payments, and I just shut down. So
Yeah.
I want you to know that decision. I love that you guys are from like you said, entrepreneurs from the get go. You're thinking, hey, how do we get this thing done, in a better way? So I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very
But
cool.
now if I think about it, I wish we did keep the properties, because what we did was we lived and flipped. But what we should have done was like live, renovate it, and then rent it out to jump
But you
into.
were already in the process, so I
Yeah.
love it. I love you had the mindset.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's we can always look back on what we didn't do right.
Exactly. Learning, right?
Yeah,
Learning
yeah.
there. Learning
There
from
you go.
experience.
Cool. So you said four business. I've heard two.
Yeah. So the second business, which is my active income and what I'm focusing on right now, which is also my calling, is in the financial industry, and that is building policies for infinite banking.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is my calling is just going back to my experience in 2021. I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. Thank God, praise the
Still
Lord.
hard to talk about, isn't it?
I am cancer free now. And I give it all up to him, because if I really take a look back, I was saved because of the things that happened in my life 7 years prior to that diagnosis. Yeah, like it was actually because of my conversation with Miguel Becerril, who's also in Owners Club, where he pointed it out. I was like, you're right. And the reason for that is because when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, my husband and I were asset rich, cash poor, like a lot of real estate investors are. Um, and at that point, the cost of my treatments, my doctor visits, my surgeries, everything, hospitalization was over $275,000. And even just mentioning that amount, it's giving a pit in my stomach today, because
Yeah.
that amount could really paralyze a family financially, right? And my husband and I started talking like, should we sell everything, including our primary residence, and move back with his parents just so that I could focus on beating the disease?
Yeah. Focus, focus, focus. Yeah.
Focus, focus, focus. And at that time, we were like, okay, well, you know what? How about let's ask the man himself, like, what is the plan here? And our backs were against the wall, and all I could really do was get down on my knees and pray.
Love that.
And I kid you not, that same week after when I felt like everything was just falling apart, my life insurance agent, who happens to be my husband's aunt, called me and heard through the grapevines, because at that time I was very private. I didn't want people to know about anything, and only like the closest people heard about my diagnosis. And she called me because she heard it through the grapevines, and I'm glad that someone told her, and said that the policy that I purchased 7 years prior, when my daughter was born at that time, the policy that she forced us to purchase. Again, we were thinking we have enough assets, we don't need to buy life insurance, but she forced us, and we pretty much bought it to kind of like get her off my back,
Can
kind
I
of thing.
can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this. My other business for 27 years was an Allstate insurance agent, and
Mm,
I sold life insurance. And I don't like selling. I'm not pushing on people, and that's the only product that I would say I would kind of push on people, because I'm like,
hmm.
I'm doing this because I care, right? Even though people
Yes,
thought, well, I just like you said at the time, you probably thought your cousin was just trying to make a sale or some sort, and the money that was involved in for her to make a sale wasn't worth the relationship push. She was doing that
yeah,
because she cared, and it's hard to see that
absolutely.
sometimes. And so I love the fact that you admit that you did it because you just wanted her off your back, but it's okay.
It's
So
okay.
yeah,
And I think it was because God was working through her, because He knows that this is what's going to happen to me. Right. And so, 7 years later, when she heard about my diagnosis, she said, "Hey, Teresa, I'm not sure, you know, if you guys are hurting on finances because of what's happening with you. But the policy that I forced you to buy 7 years ago has this thing called illness riders, which means that if you have a qualifying illness such as cancer, you can accelerate the death benefit so that you can use that for your treatments."
and you don't need to actually need you don't have to pass away to do that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So the money that my family would have inherited if that was the time that God called me home, I was able to use that, get it while I'm alive, to pay for treatments and cover
Yeah.
any, loss of income because I couldn't work at that time.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was a saving grace, I would say. I was able to do that. And now, after having like these deep conversations with the Lord, I felt that it was my calling that I help people the same way that my aunt has helped me, and protect as many people as possible, because
Yeah.
statistics show that 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And that's not because they're not earning income. Like, most of these people are earning six figures and higher, but it's just because of how inflation is on the rise, cost of living is even increasing faster than they're making income. It's
Yep.
just insane. Like,
And
if
if
they
you're, and
get
if you're
diagnosed,
yeah,
yeah.
if you're selling in Monterey, California, that's even exponentially worse, right? For that
Right.
those same issues. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, if something like this happens to them, how are they going to pay for their treatments and illness if they're already paying, I mean, living paycheck to paycheck? So this is kind
Yeah.
of like, okay, well, let's just help you and protect you, just for the just in case, the unexpected, right? Because you don't want to be drowning in finances and your family having to worry about, how am I gonna beat this these illness if I don't can't afford the treatments. And then also, statistics show that people who file for bankruptcy because of their medical bills also have an 80% uh, chance of mortality. So,
Yeah, yeah. The the psyche of all that coming together, it has is brutal on your ability to fight, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
was just gonna say in my insurance business, I sold auto insurance and home insurance and liability insurance and business insurance and health insurance, and the point is that I had a team that helped
Hmm.
that did this for me, and they weren't talking to people about life insurance, and I said why, and they're like, well, because I'm busy selling auto and
Mm,
home and renters and condo, and routinely I'd pull them aside and say, listen, they're coming to you for auto because the government says they have to have an auto insurance, and they're coming to you because for the home because the mortgage is saying they have to have it. They're not doing this because they want to. They're doing it because someone's forcing them. I said,
mm,
no one's forcing them to take care of themselves, put away for their future, whether it be in, investments of whatever type or this. I said, it's
right.
our job to have this conversation. And we can't make them do what they don't want to do, but we have to bring it forward. And so I think that that's for me, that was my saving grace because I don't like sales people, pushing things on me. But that was my way of doing it. And I think that's what you're saying is like, that people aren't thinking about this. And they're
Hmm.
quite frankly kind of ties into my whole problem with why I have this podcast is because a lot of people are sitting in their box doing what they have to do because someone's telling them and they're letting somebody else run their lives. And this kind of ties right into it, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
especially since, like you said, no one's educating them about this. So you mentioned you don't like sales because it feels like you're pushing people into it. I don't like doing that as well. That's the reason why when I got out of college, the direction I went towards is the path of marketing versus sales because
I
I'd
like that.
rather educate people about the benefits of things. And so my way of selling life insurance is really in the educational path versus the pushy sales path.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you gotta own it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, I'm again, I have a little bit of expertise here, so it's kind of weird. I didn't expect to have this conversation this deep, but life insurance. If I can get someone to buy it, they want the cheapest stuff around. Term
Mm,
insurance, right? And then I sold permanent products, what it's called UL products, and I sold VUL products, which were variable universal life, which they had
mm-hmm.
had mutual funds built into or units built into them.
Yeah.
What's the product that you are have found? Because I've heard of this what'd you say that the term was earlier? Infinite banking.
Infinite banking. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that product wasn't available when I was selling, or at
Mm-hmm.
least to my knowledge. Now I
Mm,
have a product for my family that is permanent. It has all this cash value that I can borrow from and use for things and put it back, and there's all sorts of things. But I don't consider that what was it called, the infinite banking.
oh.
So is that what you're doing? Is something is that next level, the next generation?
Yeah, so infinite banking, but I'm rebranding it as Thrive Banking, which is part of my Mount Everest, by the way, and I'll go
I
into
love
that
that.
later. But infinite banking, aka Thrive Banking, is not necessarily the life insurance, right? That's there's a misconception that people think, oh, infinite banking, life insurance. Infinite banking or Thrive Banking is the process of replicating what the banks are doing, right? That's where the
Correct.
banking comes into play. It's replicating what the banks are doing because they're really good at doing two things. One is getting those high rates of return because when they lend out money, they get anywhere from 5% to 30%. Like credit cards
Right.
nowadays are like 29.9%, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Right.
They love it when you put your money there, right?
Right, exactly. And then second thing that they're really good at is transferring the risk because they're not using their money, they're using our money, the depositors' money to give out those loans. So if anything happens to those loans, you know, they're okay with it because it's not their money they're losing, it's our money. So they're really good at doing those two things. And that the process of infinite banking is really replicating that. And the financial tool that we've seen in the industry that works really well to implement the strategy is a cash value life insurance policy. So whether that's variable life, whether that's index universal life, whether that's whole life, it really depends on the client, on the person that needs this policy and their goals. I don't steer them towards one product over the other. It's really like, let's have a conversation. What are your goals? What are the things that you need this for? What does your family need? And then I will recommend the type of product for them. So that's essentially what infinite banking or thrive banking is, replicating what the banks are doing.
Okay, so again, I don't know. I haven't taken classes on this topic. I got out of the insurance world a couple years ago, so it's kind of like, even though I know a lot about this, I haven't really kind of gone deep in this. But
Mhm.
so basically, that's for me, for my product. It's I overfunded it, and
Yes.
early on, built up a nest egg that was built in there that I could borrow from. Is
Mhm.
that the essential kind of thing that you're talking about with each of these products? Any of these products can do that, correct?
Yes, any product, any life insurance policy that has the second component to it, right? So you mentioned earlier the traditional type of policy, which is the term life, which is the cheapest type of policy. That doesn't have that. That doesn't have the capability to be a bank or like an infinite banking policy, right? Because it only has one component, and that is life insurance. The second type of policy, which is what we call in the industry cash value life insurance policy, is any policy that has that the savings component to it. The
Right.
the cash value policy. So again, two components to these policies. One is life insurance. Second is attached to your policy, whether you use it or not. Anyway, so that is the cash value, and it's beating most high yield savings account there out there. So why not use it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, my process of selling was always, hey, I know you need it. And I used to say the four M's: marriage, mortgage, munchkins, or retirement money, right?
Yeah.
And I'd say everybody needs some. It just depends on how much and what kind, right? And
Hmm.
and like you said, everybody has their goals in mind. Um, but yeah, getting people to go to say, hey, I'm going to use this tool that also has this other tool capability
Yeah.
it's a tough nut sometimes because people just don't want to go that deep. They just want to, like it or not, they want to swipe and be done and move on.
Yeah.
So I love what you're doing, and I think that you're trying to push in and get the real connection that you need to get them to go, wait, let me stop and think outside that box. Let me do the
Mhm.
thing that maybe most people aren't doing because they're not taking the time. But
Right.
again, yeah, the statistics you threw out earlier, I think are accurate that, maybe 20, 25, 30% of people in America have life insurance. And
Hmm.
yes, I mean, lots of us get lucky and we don't ever need it, right? Or when
Right.
we do need it, it's too late. I mean, it's, we're at the point where it didn't matter, the family was on their own or whatever. But my thing is, like I said, I had a marriage. I'm married. My wife stayed at home with my kids all those years, and that was important for me to have some for her. My kids, my munchkins were really important. So those are the kind of things that I would say suggest just keep doing your thing. I love what you're doing. Um,
Thank you.
that's your active income, and it is a passion. Is it
Yeah.
your goal? Is it your what we call Mount Everest? Where you want to be in 5 or 6 or 10 years?
Yes, it's part of it. So my Mount Everest is essentially what I call the Thrive movement. And the goal is to help 5,000 people get out of this just hustling to survive mode and help them finally thrive. Right? That's
Yes.
the reason why there's Thrive movement. And also the reason why I rebranded Infinite Banking as the Thrive Banking. And that movement actually has three pillars to it, right? The first pillar is Thrive Banking, which is the very foundation of this movement. Because one, we want to make sure that not only you thrive, but if something happens to you, your family will still be okay and thrive without you, financially at least. Right? And so that's the very foundation, Thrive Banking Policy. Let's get you into a policy so that you can leverage that into the second pillar of this movement, which is what we're building a real estate investment club, which I call the Thrive Capital Collective. It's going to be in fractional. Essentially, again, it's a club where we all jump into it, put our money together so that we can, as a collective, jump into the third pillar of this movement, which is what I'm calling the Thrive Impact Projects. And essentially, these are real estate investment projects that are not only about making money, but how can they make an impact in not just also our lives, but in the community as well, right? An example of this is we're both in Owners Club. A lot of the people in Owners Club are go-givers and want to make an impact in the world. One person that I would mention out there is James Chavez, who is founder of Rising Roots. His Mount Everest is to build a portfolio of co-living spaces specifically to help shelter kids who are aging out of the foster care system, right?
Right.
The reason for that is because kids aging out of the foster care system, 68% of them right now are, once they age out, they're kind of pushed into adulthood with no mentorship, no coaching. And in 18 months, or even maybe shorter than that, 68% of them end up homeless. So by jumping into the root cause, by educating and mentoring these kids who are aging out of the system, he's not only helping them out and building that foundation for them, but also in the end, kind of, hitting that homelessness epidemic that we're seeing in this country, right? So these are the type of projects that we, as the Thrive Collective, would want to fund. So impact
Love
projects.
that.
So it's not only helping us, but it's also helping the community.
Yeah, it's funny. I love that. I think that there's people who care in the business, and I think there's people who care and they're working really hard to do things. But it's that lack of love at home,
Mm-hmm.
for these people. And so what you're talking about is kind of throwing love at the people who need it. I love that. It's really, and again, I didn't really live that in my life until the last year or so where I saw it. I can see the
Mm,
difference in kids and the way, the
yeah.
glint in their eye when they had a parent showing up or didn't. So yeah, those are the people that we definitely need to take care of. So I love that. I love that. It's funny. I'm, as you may or may not know, I'm a private money lender, and I
Yeah.
help other people. And one of my like Mount Everest is to not bring people in who know everything about real estate and think that they have all these guru things. I'm trying to bring in people who don't, and maybe they have some money, but it's sitting in the bank, and they don't have the knowledge that they can go do something differently. And as I
Mm,
bring them into lending, I bring them into, hey, let's buy, let's do something together. Let me help you create the future for your family that you wouldn't have done unless we're out here doing this together. So I very
yeah.
similar paths that we're talking about. I love that. I like it's like, yeah, it's just again, I would say the small little push that I could have had and I didn't have it, and now I'm doing it in my 50s. So I love that you're pushing out that extra love to people and trying to help them to see that light. So it's awesome. I love it. So banking, Capital Club, through you mentioned fractional, and then the Impact Club. Is that what I said? Impact.
Yes.
So
So Thrive Banking, Thrive Capital Collective, and the Thrive Impact Projects.
I love it. Good, nice work. So I want to make sure that we push anything else out that you want to talk about. This is your time. Is there anything else that you want to bring out other than the fact that we're in the same group? You did mention Owners Club. Love Owners Club. I'm doing things I would have never done because of this group that we're in. Pace Morby, obviously, he's the guy who's got the imagination that brings it all to us. I love that. I mean, he is super super amazing. So,
Oh, yeah.
anybody else you want to throw some shake at?
No, I mean, I would just like to thank you, Brian, for having me, sharing your platform with me and allowing me to share my vision with your audience. But if anyone who is really interested in learning more about the Thrive movement and how you can help impact the community society as well, by first building that Thrive Banking Foundation for you and your family, go to my website, thrivebankingstrategies.com.
There you go.
And that's really it.
I love it. And your Instagram again?
My Instagram is Build Wealth with Trey because we build wealth together.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for joining me today. And I look forward to connecting with you. And the next time we have a meeting, I think it's about a month or so. So we'll
Yeah,
see
next
each other
month.
and give each other a hug. We are now friends, dang it.
Besties.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.